Okay, so we are going to discuss one problem here. This is regarding engineering economy. We have to maintain according to the problem, to maintain its newly acquired equipment, the company needs 4,000 pesos, 40,000 pesos per year for the first 5 years, and 60,000 pesos per year for the next 5 years. In addition, an amount of 140,000 pesos would also be needed at the end of the 5th and 8th years. So at 6%, the question is, what is the present worth of this cost? So A, 689,213, B, 549,812, or 512,453 for letter C, and for letter D choice, 586,425 pesos. So again, we are going to determine the present worth of the cost to maintain the newly acquired equipment based on the given condition that it needs 40,000 pesos per year for the first 5 years and then 60,000 pesos per year for the next 5 years. And additionally, there is an amount of 140,000 pesos which is needed at the end of the 5th and 8th year. So what we are going to do is to draw first the diagram of the annuities. Okay, so according to the problem, we have for the first 5 years and then the next 5 years. So what we are going to draw is an annuity for the next 10 years. So if we are going to draw the annuities, we shall be using the diagram for the annuity. So starting from the 0 year, first year, second year, third year, fourth year, fifth year. So for that first 5 years, we need to add 40,000. We need to use 40,000 pesos. So this is 40. Let's say this is 40K for the first 5 years. So it would need 40,000 pesos for the first 5 years. So that means it is also 40,000, 40,000, 40,000, and 40,000 for the next 5 years all throughout. So let me just use a diagram here, which is for the next 5 years, for the first 5 years. And then for the next 5 years, so that means we have 1, that is 6th year, 7th year, 8th year, 9th year, then we have 10th year. We have 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. And so we have 60,000 to be used for the next 5 years. So what we are going to do is to determine the present value. So in the annuity, you might as well determine first the annuity of the first 5 years, the present value for the first 5 years. So we will have for the first 5 years. The value for n here is equals to 5, and then we don't know yet the value of the present cost for that total of 40,000 times 5. Okay. So n for n is equals to 5. And then we will have the annuity for the 40,000, because according to the problem, there is an addition amount of 140,000 needed at the end of the 5th year. So at the end of the 5th year, aside from the 40,000, we need to provide 140,000. So that 140,000 can be determined also, the present value of that 140,000 can be determined too, and that the number of years also is 5, because the 140,000 will be used or will be needed at the end of the 5th year and also at the end of the 8 years. So at the end of the 8th year, again, we will be needing 140,000. So at the end of the 8th year is also 140,000. So we still need to determine the present value of that 140,000. Let's call that as P sub 3. And that would be let's call that as P sub 3, okay. And the n, the number of n will be equals to 8. But take note, we also have the 60,000. So the 60,000 is the 60,000, all the 60,000 will also have its own present worth. Let's call that as P sub 4. And that the value for that will be determined by finding first. Let's call that this one is P sub 5, because we will be using the present cost first. That is P sub 4. This P sub 4 so that is n is equals to 5. And then we are going to use the present worth of this P sub 4. Let's call that as P sub 5. So let us all determine the present cost, because the question is, what is the present worth at 6%? So that would mean the value for I is 6% or 0.06. So using this, we will have the total cost, present cost, will be equals to P sub 1 plus P sub 2 plus P sub 3 plus P sub 5. And take note that we would have also the value for P sub 4 and P sub 5. So for P sub 1, we will have the 40,000. And then you have P over A. And then the value for I is 0.06. And then the value for N is 5. For P sub 2, we will have 140,000 for the future cost. And that the value for I is also 6%. And the value for N is also 5 years. Now, to determine P sub 5, we need to determine first P sub 4, which is the present cost of the annuity with 60,000. So P sub 4, our future Our annuity here is 60,000. And that is the same annuity. The value for I is the same as 0.06. And then of course the value for N is also equals to 5. So if that is P sub 4, then we will have P sub 5 will be equals to 60,000 for the annuities. And then the value for I is 0.06. And then the value for N is 5 also. But that is the present cost. The value of annuity will be, or your P sub 4 is the present cost. And what we are looking for is the P sub 5, which is the future cost is P sub 4. And we are looking for P sub 5, which is the present cost. So what we are going to use is to divide the value of this by 1 plus 0.06 raised to the n, which is equals to 5. So that was taken from the formula that future cost is equals to present cost times 1 plus I raised to the n, wherein the future cost is P sub 4 and the present cost is P sub 5, and the value for I is 0.06, and still the value for N is 5. Now for P sub 3, this time we have 140,000, which is needed after 8 years. So the 140,000 is at the future cost. The 140,000. And then the same value for I, which is 0.06. And then the value for N this time, that should be 8. Again, for P sub 3, we have 40,000. And looking at 140,000, looking at the present, the future cost, we have 0.06 for I, and the value for N is 8. So since we have now all the value for the present cost, then we can now determine the present cost of the entire annuity. So that would be additional if you are going to determine the annuities for each. Okay. The 40,000 for the 40,000 annuity of 40,000, for the 140,000 which is needed at the end of 5 years, the annuity of 60,000 for 5 years, and then the present cost of the 60,000 annuity, the future cost will be 60,000 for 5 years. So that will have, we will be able to determine the value of the total present cost will be 40,000. So the present cost, the total present cost will be, for P sub 1, you have 40,000. 40,000 multiplied by 1 plus I, which is 0.06, raised to the n, which is equals to 5. The value for n is 5, minus 1. All over, divided by this 40,000, divided by 1 plus I to the n, 1 plus I, which is 0.06, raised to the n, which is 5, multiplied by I, which is 0.06. plus, we are going to add the 140,000. 140,000. Multiply it by, divide it by 1 plus I to the n. 140,000, that is 1 plus I, 0.06 raised to the n, which is 5. Plus, of course, we will have, by the way, I just erased this one. I use F instead of A here because that should be for the future cost, but not for the annuities. For the first 140,000, which is to be used or needed at the end of the 5th year. Then we are going to need the value for P sub 5, which is the present cost, and that we are going to use 60,000 for the annuities. 60,000 multiplied by 1 plus I, 0.06, raised to the n. Our n here is 5, minus 1, divided by 1 plus I, 0.06, raised to the n times I, which is equals to 0.06. Divided by, because we are looking for the present cost, divided by 1 plus I, which is 0.06, raised to the n, which is equals to 5. And that we are going to add the P sub 3, which is the present cost. Additionally, we are going to add 140,000, which is needed at the end of the 8th year. So that would be 140,000 plus 0.06 raised to the 8th, raised to 8, raised to the n, which is equals to 8. We have all over, let me just redraw, 1 plus 0.06 raised to the 8. That was from the present cost of P sub 3. So therefore, we will be able to have the total present cost, the 40,000 times 1 plus I to the n, wherein n is 5, minus 1, divided by 1 plus I to the n times I. We have 169 based on calculations. We have 169,494.55. Plus, we will have the second one, the 140,000, the present cost of 140,000 at the end of the 5th year, that is 104,616.14, plus the annuity of 60,000, which is equivalent to 188. That should be 188,863.39 plus, of course, you have the 140,000, the present cost of 140,000, which is 87,837.73. And that would mean the total value of P is equals to 549,000 811.81. And this will be our answers. 149,811.81. So if you are going to take a look at the question, that means our answer will be letter B. 149,812. So that will be our answer. So this is for now for the engineering economy. I shall see you again for my next video tutorial.